Welcome to the Blue Dwarf Keeping Children Safe Online. I am Paula, your host. I am a dedicated cybersecurity professional with a passion for OSINT and digital forensics. This podcast is a safe, supportive space where we share real world tips to help parents, carers, and teachers protect children in today's digital world. No fear, just practical advice and empowering insights to help you feel more confident navigating online safety. Today's guest is Fergus Hay, the co-founder and CEO of the Hacking Games, an initiative creating a new generation of ethical hackers using gamified environment to engage, train, and identify talent early on. Fergus, welcome to our podcast. Your work feels right at the intersection of youth empowerment and digital safety. So let's dive into it. The first question is, can you give us a quick overview of what the Hacking Games is and the core mission behind it?
Yeah, sure. Well, Paula, first of all, it's awesome to be invited on this. Thank you so much. As you know, you and Chris are part of our virtue network of the Hacking Games, so great community feeling and really happy to partner up. So the Hacking Games has got a vision to create a generation of ethical hackers to make the world safer. And the reason why we're doing that is that there's a cybercrime pandemic that is very visible. Cybercrime will cost the world $10.5 trillion this year. To
Wow.
put that in perspective, that's the global cost of COVID, according to the IMF. Next year, or in 2 years' time, it's forecasted to be $24 trillion. If that is true, that is the GDP of the United States. So it's a massive problem, and we wanted to find out who's behind it. And of course, it's Russia, Korea, China, all the nation states, and it's the organized gangs out of Eastern Europe and South America and South Asia and Africa. But the really scary thing is that the data shows that the vast majority of the hackers are kids. So Europol published data 2 years ago that showed that 69% of European teenagers have committed a cybercrime or a gross cyber misdemeanor. 69%. The FBI, who sit on our advisory board, will tell you that the average age of that they arrest someone for serious crime is 37, but the average age that they arrest someone for cybercrime is 19 years old. And in fact, the people who are arrested for the hack on M&S, Co-op, and Harrods were aged 17 years old, 19 years old, and 20 years old. Just
Wow.
last week, the two kids in court for hacking Transport for London and a crypto heist at $150 million value were 18 and 19 years old. So what you've got is a serious problem. You've got an entire new generation of cyber criminals who are being caught at 18, which means they've been weaponized at about 14. So we thought this was a big problem and we wanted to understand why. Why is this happening and what can we do about it? Because effectively, you've got a generation who are natural born hackers who are either going to be a liability to society or going to be an asset. And so what we're focusing on is identifying this talent. We think they're incredibly talented, but if you can identify them, inspire them to be ethical hackers, evaluate their skill sets, which are currently invisible, and then provide a pathway to filling that labor deficit in the industry of 4.8 million unfilled jobs, then we can create a generation of ethical hackers to make the world safer.
That's amazing. It's a hard job, but it's a great job. You describe it as building a generation of ethical hackers. Can you tell me a bit of the difference of um, being? What's the difference between being an ethical hacker and a cyber criminal?
Yeah, it's a great question, Paula. You know, the image presented by the cybersecurity industry has not been helpful at all. In fact, I really think the cyber industry is pretty poor at communicating and projecting what's right and wrong. There is only one image of a hacker at the moment. It's the hoodie up, it's no face, it's the matrix in the background, and people tapping away at a keyboard. And you see it everywhere. You see it on the BBC News website. You see it on the Times, on the Guardian. You see it on, in the conferences is how they advertise GSEC in UAE. And it really frustrates me because that presents an image of a dark, insidious underworld, criminal underworld. And it is true of the criminals, but it is not true of the ethical hackers. When you really, really dig into it, hacking is nothing to do with technology. we interviewed Jeff Mann, who is the founder of the Red Team at the NSA. And I said to Jeff, wow, you must be super technical. And Jeff was like, no, I'm not technical at all. I'm a puzzle solver. I see patterns and I see solutions. And when I grew up playing wooden puzzles and metal puzzles with my dad, and I loved doing crosswords. And actually, that's how GCHQ hired the very best spies, was putting these impossible puzzles to solve in the newspaper. And that's what hacking really is. Hacking is seeing patterns and finding solutions. It's seeing a structure, breaking it down to its component parts, and working out how to spot the vulnerabilities and what to do with it. And if you take that mindset, then you sit there and go, well, let's tell the stories of the ethical hackers. Ethical hackers are people like Tim Berners-Lee, who created the World Wide Web, or Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, who got the seed capital for Apple by being paid by companies to hack their phone lines, or Bill Gates, who actually got banned from using computers for a year and phones when he was 12 years old because he was stealing compute power down the phone. He was freaking. But look at all these people. They've used their skills to create amazing things, to create enormous companies, employ thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, and create GDP and tax revenues. But we never tell that story. We never tell the heroic story. We only ever tell the demonic story. So I think the industry has really caused problems. I mean, we've even labeled these gangs with cool names like Scattered Spider. But
Yep.
where are the Avengers? Where are where are the Expendables? Where are the heroic hackers who are preserving society and defending citizens and creating resilient societies? We haven't told that story, and fundamentally, that's one of the things that we need to do, because you've got to inspire a generation to want to be an ethical hacker. Right now, they go onto TikTok, and the only thing they see is, hey, I could be a cyber criminal and steal a bunch of crypto by using my skills. So the bad guys are winning.
And that's a shame because it is a waste of talent. Why is it important to start that mission from a young age?
Yeah, great question, Paula. So the problem is that these kids, this generation, are falling into hacking incredibly young. So like I said, if they're being caught at 17, they're being kind of weaponized at 14, which means they're experimenting at about 11. The entry point is gaming. So if you do the numbers, there are 3.2 billion gamers in the world. To put that in comparison, there are 3.5 billion football or soccer fans in the world. So it's a lot. 93% of Gen Z game. Gen Z is age 12 to 27. And they, on average, spend 30 minutes a day on Instagram, 50 minutes a day on TikTok, 114 minutes a day gaming. In fact, the Times of London published a report 2 weeks ago to say that British male teenagers are spending more time gaming than they are doing homework. So what happens is a kid will play a game, and they'll play a game like Roblox, where you have 79.5 million kids on it a day, or Minecraft at 140 million a day. And they want stuff in the game. They want upgrades. They want swag. They want, level ups. And they'll go and ask mum and dad for some money in the game, and most parents are limited on what they give. So then the kids go online and they find a way. And what they do is they find cheat codes and modification softwares. So they start using cheat codes and modification softwares to get what they want. And that creates a little habit, doesn't it? Oh, wow, I'm curious now. What else can I find to get what I want without having to pay for it? And the internet will give you pretty much anything. Google will give you the tools. YouTube will train you. The Discord will give you the community to teach you more stuff. And the journey is I go from playing games to finding cheat codes to finding modifications of the games to then developing my own modifications to then joining hacking forums, then learning that I can not only hack people's gaming accounts, but I can hack people's crypto accounts. And then that's where they start falling in to the world of cybercrime. And the really scary thing about it, Paula, is that kids find their own way there. But the bad guys, the cyber criminal gangs, they're watching the kids on the gaming platforms. And when they see a kid repeatedly creating hacks in the game, they approach the kid and go, hey, Paula, you want to earn some crypto? Come over to this Discord and we'll show you how. And that's the slippery slope, and it's happening at an unbelievably young age.
Wow. Yeah, it's incredible, and it's powerful and powerless in the same time.
But I'll give you some examples. So there's a kid called B who was 12 years old, and he was playing Roblox. And he found an exploit, and he hacked Roblox, and he got hold of some tokens that had high perceived value. And he sold them on the secondary market. And in one day, at 12 years old, he made $35,000. He then took that money and he put it into Bitcoin. And a year and a half later, it was worth about $400,000. And his parents only found out because he came up to them and said, "At what point should I start paying tax?" Which, by the way, is at $6,000 for a minor. So he now works for us. You know, he found his right route. We've got another guy, Ricky Handel Schumacher, who was look, he was a baseball player at high school. He was top 10 in the country, I think, and he was on his way to a baseball scholarship at university. He was a athletic guy, you know, sociable, and he was playing Halo, which is a shoot 'em up game, and he was competing. And then the other guy doxed him. The other guy worked out how to cut his connectivity. So Ricky got really pissed and was like, "Well, how did he do that?" So he went online and he found out, that the guy had basically hacked into into his account and like cut him off. So Ricky learned how to do that. Didn't take him very long. And then Ricky started doing that to other players, and it was fun. And he started progressing in the games. And then he realized with the hacking communities that he could do it to crypto wallets and crypto accounts. Fast forward 10 years, Ricky got caught doing an $18 million crypto heist, went to jail for 4 years, came out last November, and is now spending his life committed to stopping kids going down the pathway he went down to. And I did a podcast with him 2 weeks ago. I said, "Well, Ricky, like, how was it in jail?" You know, standard stupid question from someone who's not been in. And he said, "Well, I know that I'm not one of them. I know I'm not a criminal.
Yeah.
Like, I've lived with those guys now for 4 years. I'm not one of them." And that's such an interesting insight because it shows you the slippery journey that a kid in a bedroom at his parents' house, seemingly out of danger, can quickly go into high criminal activity. And then really, Ricky went deep. But, you know, in his mind, he's not naturally a criminal and he's quite happy to be out of it and on the straight and narrow. So yeah, it's a real problem.
Well, before I go on into the next question, I want to tell you something. Thank you so much for bringing this up because I have an academic paper. And while I was doing the research for that academic paper, I tried to engage with a batch of 100 parents. 35 out of them, they actually went on and filled in the questionnaire. The rest, they told me like, "Oh, my child is not smart enough. My child doesn't own a tablet or any device. My child doesn't do this. My child doesn't know how to hack." Now, you just told me that a 12-years old child went to his parents asking, "When do I start to pay my taxes?" And they had no idea what he was doing.
No idea.
I think this is a very, very important highlight that what you perceive of your child is not what your child does.
No, parents are clueless. Parents are totally clueless. You know, it's funny, like, you know, we tell our kids there's a social contract in the real life. You can't walk down the street, punch a kid in the face, steal their money, right?
Yeah.
We tell our kids that. And then that's reinforced by the community. So the neighbors, you know, the parents tell the kids what's right and wrong. The neighbors and the community and the school reinforce it. And then law enforcement and government enforce it, right? That is the social contract.
Yeah.
But in the digital world, not one of those three pillars exists. So parents have no clue what their kids are doing on gaming. In fact, they think that their kids are safe in the bedroom, right? Because they're not out on the streets. The second thing is the community online encourages each other, not discourages each other. And then thirdly, law enforcement just don't have the resources to manage what's happening in the gaming world. So everyone's clueless. And I know that because every time we do a conference speech or anything like that, as soon as we get off stage, there's 10 parents lined up, eyes like this, going, "Oh my God, what about little Johnny who's up in his bedroom all the time playing on computer games? I'm now worried about what he's doing." Well, there you go.
Yeah. I've talked to you quite a while back, and you said something very interesting. You said that hacking games, they are watching the game board, specifically chess, or at least chess stayed with me. And this is how you kind of pick or understand the skilled players, let's say. So my next question is, how do the hacking games identify promising cybersecurity talents through play and challenges?
Yeah, it's another great question, Paul. I think the best questions I've ever had on a podcast. This is
Thank
excellent. You
you.
should do this more. You got to wind back to the problem. So you've got 4.8 million unfilled jobs in cybersecurity, right?
Yes.
You've got an entire generation of natural born hackers, right? So you would think that these would be a perfect match. However, no one is hiring entry level talent. And when you ask the industry why, this is what I hear. The CISOs, the government ministers, the defense people, the people, at the top of the tree will tell you that they are under attack every day by hostile, creative, antagonistic hackers. But the talent they get in the industry are very conservative. They went to university, they've done they've done computer government compliance certificates, they've done work experience as a SOC analyst, and they're clever, but they sit within the box.
In a box,
It's
yes.
been described to me as an asymmetric war. It's an unbalanced fight.
Yes.
And what the people who are at the front of the fight want is unconventional Gen Z hacking talent. Unconventional. However, the HR industry is evaluating people by government certificates, university degrees, and how much, quote, real world experiences.
Yeah.
And this is where the breakdown is, because they're measuring academic, artificial, simulated experience. The real experience is what these kids are doing in gaming. Now, John Madeline, who's our chief product officer, has done some peer-reviewed academic research with 2 universities that has evaluated all the behaviors that kids are developing in gaming, and then all the modification and cheat code skill sets that they've created to show a parallel between that and what you can do as a cybersecurity practitioner. And actually, what you realize is that if a kid is developing aimbots, which is an automatic aiming function in a game, that is the equivalent of memory injection or MITIP. And that is complex. And if a kid has been doing that since they're 11 years old and they're in the top 10% of aimbot creators, they are way more experienced. They've got way more real world experience than someone who's been working for a decade in the industry.
Yeah.
And this is the big breakthrough, which is we're looking at the wrong things. We're not looking at the real world experience of this generation who are living, remember, 114 minutes a day on average gaming, right? So they're in a live laboratory of skills development since they're 11 years old, but no one's evaluating that information. So what we've built is a product called HapTi, the Hacking Aptitude AI platform. And what HapTi does is it doesn't look at your LinkedIn profile because they don't have one. It doesn't look at your resume because they haven't written one. And if they have written one, it's written by ChatGPT and read by ChatGPT. So it's just 2 ghosts talking to each other. But we look at their gaming behaviors. We've profiled 100 games: Call of Duty, League of Legends, chess, World of Warcraft. We looked at 100 games and we see their performance in the games. And by seeing their performance in the games, we get an idea of their mindset and puzzle solving. Then we look at the modifications that they've created, the hacks, the cheat codes, and that gives us an idea of their technical skills. And then we've developed a psychographic platform with Professor Mark Loftus from Oxford University that looks at how they think, their levels of neurodiversity. And that builds an aptitude profile, a whole picture potential of the hacker that enables the 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old person who's developed their skills in the gaming world to be seen, to be visible. And then it enables the industry to identify the real talent based on what matters, not what doesn't matter. And it enables them to see the invisible talent and make it visible. And that way, we think we can connect the really great unconventional hacking talent to the important roles that will preserve society, governments, and private sector.
Wow, that's powerful. Are there any particular traits or behavior that you're looking for?
Well, actually, there are kind of 9 different personas, and each persona is different. One persona is an attacker, one persona is a defender, one persona is someone who works on really complicated long-term strategic problems. One persona is someone who works on really short-term intense problems. One persona is a strategist, so thinks really far ahead. There's 9 different personas of a hacker, and that's kind of deep industry research that has created our 9 personas. And out of those 9 personas, we can identify from the games you play the kind of persona you are. So, for example, if you're playing the Stanley Parable, which is a really complicated, seemingly never-ending puzzle, which I've failed at, by the way. I mean, I'm completely bad at that game. Then you are a long-term strategist thinker. If you are into turn-based games like Risk or Monopoly, then you're really good at wargaming. You're a really good wargamer. If you are into Call of Duty and Fortnite, then you're really good at short-term intensity, working under high intensity pressure. So these are just the behavioral types that lead into the personas. And it's like everything in life. When you have a job, Paula, we talked about hospitality earlier, didn't we? And which was,
Yeah.
one of the passions. That what we both know about hospitality is it's not how you hold the plate. Hospitality is whether you want to look after someone. Is
Yes.
your motivation to look after someone, to make a hospitable experience? So you
Yeah.
have to understand if someone is motivated by that. It's the same with nursing and doctors. What is their intrinsic motivator? Because if you can line up someone's intrinsic motivator to what their daily job is, they'll never feel like they've worked a day in their life. And it's exactly the same with hackers.
Yes, that's true. Do you think that this kind of kids that they are drawn to gaming gaming platforms and all of these things, if not giving the positive channels, they can be vulnerable to the dark side,
Yeah, I
or
mean, they're being
attract to
manipulated.
the different advertisement from that side, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, they're being manipulated. So I'll give you some examples. So the journey is, and there's something called the cyber criminal pathway, which is basically a kid gets an iPad at about 5 years old. And you've seen that. You go to your local Pizza Express and you'll see a
Yes.
family sitting there, and there'll be a 5-year-old on an iPad at the table, just face into it like that. And it used to be the kid would have their face into their spaghetti bolognese, but now it's just face into their iPad. It, honestly, it's a total collapse of society, and it just happened. So what happens is kids get the hardware, then they start playing games, and then they start playing online games, and then they start learning about cheat codes, and then they start looking for modifications, and then they're into the hacking forums, learning about mods, and that's when they go into the criminal side. That's the pathway, right?
Yeah.
Now, the gangs are recruiting kids and manipulating kids off those gaming platforms, in particular, neurodivergent kids. Now, I'm sure we'll have a long conversation about neurodivergence. I think that word is wrong in itself because it implies that you're diverging off a norm. I would rather call it neurobrilliant because what these people can do is they can solve puzzles much faster than anyone else. And there's an amazing lady called Holly Foxcroft who speaks at great length about this. But what happens is, neurodivergent or neurobrilliant people excel at certain things: puzzle solving, patterns seeing, quick solution driving, hyper focus, incredibly persistent, really mission driven. But they may lack some of the other skill sets that a neurotypical person might have, like judgment or EQ or reading the social map around them, which makes them quite vulnerable to manipulation. Not everyone, but some of them.
Yeah.
And there are some really sad examples of that. So you might be familiar with a guy called Gary McKinnon. Gary McKinnon was a neurodivergent gamer from the UK, and he was a teenager, and he went along that journey I described, and then he ended up falling in with really not very good hacking communities online, and he ended up committing the largest military hack in history at the age
Wow.
of 60 on the CIA. And he's right now in an extradition battle between the UK and the US. Although he's only 19 now, right? Supposedly the founder of Lapsus, supposedly, and Lapsus probably the most famous gang in the world. British teenage autistic kid, arrested and convicted, but now in mental health asylum. But then it gets really, really sad. There's a kid called Junaid Hussain, also British from the Midlands. Again, gamer, super autistic, manipulated by gangs at about 11, was doing lots of, hacking for gangs, making a lot of money for them. But then he got kind of picked up by ISIS and radicalized by ISIS at about 16. And then he ended up moving to Syria when he was 17, became the head of disinformation and social media. But by 21, he was taken out by a drone strike designed just for him by the Americans. The thing, it would be easy to categorize Junaid as a radicalized terrorist. But we know people in our community who knew Junaid, and they said, let me tell you about this kid. Sweetest boy you could possibly ever imagine. Really autistic, the kind of kid that you could walk up to a fire and say, put your hand in the fire, Junaid, and he would. And he was just vulnerable and brilliant, but vulnerable. And no one was aware of what was happening. If you walked out and you saw, like, some dodgy guys speaking to Junaid on the street, you would intervene, right? Because it was visible, but this wasn't visible. And I think that's just an example, a pretty extreme example, and clearly a bit of an anomaly of the manipulation and vulnerability of any kids on the gaming platforms. We have to realize they're when they're playing games, it's as dangerous as if they were, on the street corners at midnight on a Saturday night. But also of the neurodivergent kids and how vulnerable they are to the manipulation, and they're targeted. They're targeted.
I have no words. The only thing that I was actually thinking, it was a very good advice my mother gave me when I was around 15 or 16. She said to me, like, dear, every bad choice comes wrapped in gold. I was like, what? Like, nobody will come and tell you, I don't know, steal something. They will tell you, like, oh, this is fun. Let's do that. And you will believe that you prank someone, but you actually commit a crime. So I think this is very valid in terms of IT as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree with that. I love that saying. It's true though as well.
Do you see these platforms not only as skills pipelines, but also as a confidence building tool for kids who might not thrive in traditional classrooms environment?
I really hope so. One of our observations is that there's no career management for this generation. So if we did an analysis of the industry, and basically, if you're a C-suite executive, you get great career management from all the top recruitment companies. But if you're entry level, you're not worth enough money for anyone to career manage you. So what we think we can do here is, if Paula at 16 has gone through HapTi and she's developed her profile, and she sees what she's going to see is she's going to see her psychographic map, she's going to see her skill set. And we'll send you a demo and you can put it on the podcast so you can see it.
Yes, please.
It's super cool, I've got to say. And so Paula can see her skills and she can see her development areas. And then we are connecting with our training partners, such as Immersive Labs, to provide free training so Paula can up her skills. And that way she can up her scoring, which means she can up her applicability to a job. And we've already built in an agent into it so that you can have your own agent that you can talk to, that knows your profile and can make recommendations on what you can do to upskill and can continue to behaviorally nudge you along the way. We're not trying to pretend it's a replacement for a human, but it is tailored to you. And at the moment, this generation just doesn't have that. So we think that will provide pathways for this generation to be seen. But what I will tell you is this on the confidence piece. This generation are just invisible.
Yes.
What's happening with the really brilliant ones is the school have given up on them because the kids given up on the school. And that's normally because they're neurodivergent. The school isn't teaching for neurodivergence. They know way more than the computer science teacher. The way they learn at school is not applicable for how they learn. And you can speak to honestly anyone who's neurodivergent and ask them about their school experience. I mean, it's torture. So their school's given up on them, and the parents think they're being lazy. I had this conversation yesterday actually with a professor. It was so funny. I spoke at this conference. It's obviously cybersecurity quarter at the moment, so every day is an event. We spoke at this conference yesterday, and this professor came up. I'm trying to anonymize it because it's not fair. Anyway, she basically said, "My children are really lazy." And she was a professor of so she has a high academic expectations. They're like, they don't do any schoolwork. They're so lazy. All they do is sit in their room playing computer games. And I'm sitting there going, well, your metric is wrong.
Exactly.
Actually, your mindset is wrong. Because what you haven't understood is that what they're doing on gaming, and they're for sure hacking, they're neurodiverse maths and gaming all the time. It's like, let me tell you exactly what they're doing up there. What this generation and this lady hasn't understood is that actually they're learning way more up there than they would in the academic environment.
Plus one, yeah.
And so the kids feel invisible. They feel like no one's looking at them. They feel like no one's recognizing them. And we've spent a lot of time with this generation, and I've learned 5 things about them. Number one, they want fame. They
Yes.
find it so annoying that these untalented YouTubers are famous, whereas they're really talented, so they want fame. Number two, they want intellectual recognition. They're like, we are so bright, but no one recognizes us. They think we're weird, but we're brilliant. The third thing is they're incredibly competitive. From the age of 5 years old, they've been winning in games, earning XP points, getting to the top of the leagues, progressing. So they want to be recognized. They want to be at the top of the leaderboard. Number four, of course, they want money because they know how to make money. I've got kids who are making, 20, 30,000 a month selling modification software at like 13. So they know how to make money. So they would like to make legitimate money, not illegitimate money. And then the fifth one, which I've got to say is unvalidated, it's just my opinion,
Hmm.
is that at best, they were marginalized at school. At best. At worst, they were bullied badly. And now I've really seen a sense of vengeance and a sense of justice in this generation. They hate bullies. They want to take down the bad guys. There's this sense of purpose. It's so powerful. That's why the community comes together. It's why when there's a wrong, they want to right it. If you've ever seen a documentary called Don't Fuck with Cats, which is all about a group of OSINT kind of hackers and researchers who come together because someone put a video of them torturing and killing cats. And they were like, don't fuck with cats. We're going to find you. And in this documentary, they went and found the guy. And then they found out by hacking his stuff that he had actually murdered a human. And then the guy got arrested. It's an amazing documentary. Don't fuck with cats. It's on Netflix, 4-part series. Every single person there is driven by a sense of justice and vengeance. And that's
Well,
such a powerful human emotion in this generation.
I'm not a doctor or anything, but I can validate your fifth theory.
Yeah, okay, great.
So
Tell
what
me.
I know, I can, if my opinion matters, yes, I can validate your theory. I Due to the fact that the child is a minor, we don't say who or give any
Yeah.
pictures. But yeah, I know someone who's going through a very rough time. The child is brilliant, but because he comes from mixed family,
Cultures. Yeah.
yes, mixed cultures, he's very bullied at school. I
Yeah.
actually sit down with the child and we went through a lot of things, and he's a brilliant kid. Seriously, he is. The amount of bullying that he suffered in school, it's just unbelievable. And that's a shame. That's really a
Yeah.
shame.
It's a scar
Say,
for life, unfortunately.
did any school actually contact you, or did they want to know what you're doing? Did they approach you? That was the word.
Yeah, so we're working with schools. But not from the top down. So one of our partners is the Co-op, which is the retailer in the UK that got hacked. The second largest retailer in the UK. They actually own 39 schools. And the Co-op is an amazing organization. They're cooperative back from the 19th century. They are community owned. So they have 55,000 staff in the UK, 2,500 or so stores. They're in every postcode in the UK, every zip code. Even when they're loss making, like in the Outer Hebrides, they will still be there because their mission is to provide affordable, accessible food for every part of society. So they are the opposite of the kind of commercial capitalistic retailers. And what's amazing about the co-op is that they own schools. They have 39 high schools, academies we call them in the UK, with 20,000 kids in them. And they're high schools in pretty economically challenged areas. So we've got a 4-year partnership with the co-op where we're going into those schools, and I'm bringing famous hackers like Marcus Hutchins and people who've been through it to inspire these kids to say, look, you can do good stuff with your skills. Then those kids will go through our data platform to be profiled. And then we brought in training partners to then provide training and cybersecurity training for them. And then we're lining up companies to provide employment opportunities for them. Now, this is also a subset of what the UK government has promised to do. The UK government announced the Tech First program in April this year, where they've granted £185 million to educate 1 million kids in AI, cyber, and quantum over a 4-year period. And they're going to do that through the school system. So I think the schools are leaning in. You know, you've seen these bilateral trade deals between the US and the UK on AI. You know, people understand that, you know, we need to equip this generation with skills. And cyber has been hiding in a niche, in a shadow, its own fault actually. But now it is firmly in the mass. You know, when you can't get your Percy Pigs on the shelves in Marks and Spencers, when you can't get your tangerines from Co-op, you know, society wakes up. When you see teenagers in the media every day in court for doing these hacks, society wakes up. So I think we've seen a moment of history in the last few months here in the UK where people have understood the social issue of teenage hackers, and the government is lent in fast. The retailers have lent in fast, and I think you're going to see a big shift in the curriculum to basically equip our kids to make good decisions. And you add on top of that the geopolitical volatility and the fact that we're in a hybrid warfare at the moment, and just look at the messaging coming out of NATO last week about the Russian hybrid warfare threat. You
Yeah.
know, I think you're going to see this being one of the fundamental pillars of society.
Unfortunately, yes. Do you have any? Let's brighten up a bit. Do you have any stories of players who started with you, meaning with the hacking games, and then went on to professional cybersecurity roles or education tracks?
I mean, so we're only a year old, so we haven't got success stories that we can present as ours, but there are great success stories of people who did it on their own, and we like to show those as examples. So
Yes, please.
I think you know one of the ones that I think is amazing is Dylan Zeleneski. Dylan Ryaneski. Dylan is one of the founding members of our youth community, and during COVID, his school wouldn't let them use Microsoft Teams. So all the kids were going crazy because they couldn't talk to each other. Remember what that felt like. So at 12 years old, Dylan hacked Microsoft, and he opened up Microsoft Teams for 2.5 weeks. And then he got pulled by the FBI, and the case got referred to Microsoft. To their great credit, they didn't prosecute him. They gave him a job, and they put together a series of bug bounties for him. And last year at Black Hat Vegas, Dylan won Microsoft Researcher and Hacker of the Year. And you can only imagine what income he made from that. It would be very significant at 15 years old. They've even written a profile and a case study about him now. You know, he is a Microsoft employee, and he's a brilliant kid
Congratulations, Dylan.
who yeah, Danny's amazing. He's on our website. He's part of our founding members of our community. So, you know, he found his way brilliantly. And then, of course, there's the Marcus Hutchins story, which everyone will be familiar with. But if they're not, I'll just give you a top line on it. You know, Marcus is an amazing guy. But in 2017, the first global computer virus hit the world. It's called the WannaCry virus. And it was
Yes.
written by the North Koreans. and it took down the healthcare systems in 25 different countries. And actually, one of the first to go down was the UK. And so hospitals were offline, couldn't get into A&E, couldn't get your meds, operations were cancelled. They think it may have been the first deaths attributed to a hack, but there's lots of debate around that. Anyway, the world is in panic, and it was solved by a mixed race, autistic kid who left school at 14 in the remote West Country of the UK, surfer, called Marcus Hutchins, a guy who didn't fit school, seen as difficult. And he found the kill switch. I think he was like 17 or 19 at the time. And he became mega famous. Wired magazine put him on the front cover as the hacker who saved the internet. And he got flown out to Black Hat and DEF CON in Vegas to give some speeches. He had a great time. He was like a rock star. Everyone around him, Marcus, he really was. Hacking was cool. He was a savior. He was heroic, to my point earlier. And then on the way back, he gets pulled by the FBI. And he thought, you want me to tell you how clever I was with the WannaCry virus? And they were like, no, Marcus. When you were 13, you wrote malware that's been used for serious financial crime, and you're going to jail. And he went to
Wow.
court for a year and a half. So he was 19 on his own in America, a foreign country. And he went to court, year and a half, and he got a 10-year jail sentence. And the judge, to his great credit, put a red line through it. And he said, because you're the hacker who saved the internet, because you did bad stuff as a minor, as a young kid, and then you saved hospital systems in 25 countries around the world, I want the world to see you as a poster child, as a case study, as an example to other people like you that you have a choice in life. You are at an ethical fork in the road. Do you use your skills to be a liability to society, or do you use your skills to be an asset for society? And Marcus is a brilliant, and he's an amazing icon, and he's committed his life now to inspiring the next generation. He's part of the Hacking Games. We work with him all the time. We've just dropped a podcast, actually, I think on Monday, of telling his story. And he's incredibly gifted, and he is exactly the example of how kids can make a decision on how to progress themselves.
That's amazing. I'm sorry for police siren. They decide to
Can't hear
pass.
it.
That's good. They decide to pass my how does participating in the hacking game help building digital resilience in young people, especially those tempted by risky or illicit online spaces?
So I think the danger is to think that this generation are criminals.
Okay.
I don't think it's true. So the data shows you that the repeat offender rate for someone who's in jail for a serious crime in America is 75%. So 75% end up back in jail. But the repeat offender rate for people who go to jail for cybercrime is like 19%.
Okay.
So you can defer from that or connote from that they're not as criminally minded as others. And also it kind of makes sense. Like it takes a lot to go and rob a bank or, stab someone, right? But it actually doesn't take a lot to commit a crime online.
Or
It's not
probably
the
it's
same level of
exactly
commitment.
as you touched upon a bit earlier. They are not seen. We don't see them. We are not trained. We are not trained to look at them the way they need it. We are trained to look at them as, oh, he's lazy because he doesn't do the homework.
Yeah.
Is it though? Or
Yeah.
he just sees patterns in different ways than we do.
No, that's right. And where's the pathway, right? Where's the career pathway for him? Where's the legitimate or her? Where's the legitimate pathway? So I don't think they're criminally minded, and that's what law enforcement think as well. They don't think they're criminally minded. They're just not given the opportunity. So let's work back on resilience, right? Why does civic resilience matter at the moment? Well, that's because the world is at war. That's already happened. If we're at war, then it's not about some troops in combat working in a far-flung continent. Our countries mobilize. Right now, it's a hybrid war, so it's cyber, predominantly cyber, but it demands a lot of resilience from the ground up. So, you can see defense spending is going through the roof in NATO. So this is not a controversial statement. So what's going to happen then on vulnerabilities? Well, critical infrastructure, society, banks are all vulnerable, aren't they? Now, in a way, we've got the greatest resource at our fingertips. We've got a whole generation of potential cybersecurity practitioners. So, if we really want to build civic resilience, the first thing we need to do is start with the heart
Yes.
and start with helping this generation understand that they are equipped to keep society safe. And it's pretty easy. You go to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The bottom
Yes.
four parts of Maslow's hierarchy of needs are the roof above your head, and protect your family, and protect your community. And I don't, yeah, I mean, this is a whole nother topic, but I think Europe has woken up. I think Finland has woken up. Poland has woken up. Denmark, Sweden, all the people who are on the border of what's happening in Eastern Europe at the moment are fully aware. Every citizen is fully aware. I was in Finland just recently, like they are ready. I think in the UK, people are miles away from realizing the imminent threat, but it will come, and they will demand a sense of protectionism and defense and civic resilience. And I think what we will see is there will be a purpose for a young generation to use their skills, and then they will be seen, they will be visible, they will be wanted, they will be given pathways and development opportunities and training. And that doesn't mean just for the Ministry of Defence. That can also be to go and work for Her Majesty's pensions and customs and revenue, and or go and work for Visa or MasterCard or IBM, all the things that are part of our critical infrastructure, to keep us safe. So I think it's inevitable that it will be demanded and that people will react to it.
Could this kind of early education help prevent youth involvement in cybercrime before it starts?
Yeah, well, you use the right word there, prevent. So law enforcement have a program called Prevent,
Mhm.
where they try to get to the kids. But remember, I told you about this, the cyber criminal pathway. So,
Yes.
use an iPad, play games, cheat, mod, and then develop your own mod. And that's when you start to get into problems and then start hacking. So law enforcement have a line just where I just said, and everything after that they'll deal with. Once you've started committing crimes, law enforcement will turn up, they'll arrest you, they'll give you cease and desist instructions. But what they want is the prevent bit. How do we prevent and educate the kids? And that's what we're doing, and that's why we believe quite strongly you can't speak to this generation like governments or parents or teachers. It's not going to work. You have to speak the language they understand, which is popular culture, content, media, entertainment, communities, influence. So the hacking games, we have a media ecosystem, ranging from community engagement at B-sides and DEF CON to we have Gen Z content creators on TikTok and Insta and YouTube Shorts. In fact, just yesterday, the guys made a YouTube short. I don't get it. It's complete. I totally don't get it. But a million other people did. A million views with no media behind it on something that they shot on their iPhone. So, they're celebrating ethical hacking and cybersecurity, but in their own language. And then we are developing the first ever ethical hacking esports format, which will be trialed out next year as an engagement tool for this generation. And then we have a series of entertainment and content properties, documentaries, mini TV shows, all of it under the brand name The Hacking Games to celebrate ethical hacking as an aspirational space. And I think that's how you get the heart. That's how you persuade people to want something and aspire for something. And then we can provide the pathways with HapTi and the career opportunities. But we need help though. So what we need are businesses to step up. We need the security companies, the technology companies, the defense companies to unpick their archaic HR practices and evaluate kids, this generation, not even kids, 16 to 27-year-olds, based on what they're doing in gaming and based on how their brain thinks, not based on what they may or may not have done if they went to university. That's what private and public sector need to step up and change.
That's a good call to action. That's a very good call to action. Looking ahead, where do you want to take the hacking game next?
Well, we're going to roll it out multiple countries. So we're speaking to governments in 5 different countries right now to run national programs, including the UK actually, to run national programs where, ultimate success is that every curriculum in every country has cyber ethics and cyber skill sets as part of the curriculum for kids from 11 years old plus, and so that we can equip them with the skills. We want to have rolling content programs to inspire all the kids about the ethical hackers. We want HapTi to be the gold standard for evaluating their potential. And we want to have government and private sector to be taking in this talent on their merit, not based on their age. So we're looking at 4 or 5 different countries to roll these programs out in the next 2 to 3 years. And the numbers are incredible, by the way. Just look at the UK. They're going to reach 1 million kids, right? They're going to
Wow.
reach 1 million kids in 4 years. So I think it has to come top down from that perspective. And ultimately success will be a whole wave of brilliantly talented, neurotypical and neurodiverse Gen Z talent, not just technical talent, by the way, but managers, salespeople, business people, all coming into the cybersecurity sector because they understand that it's dual use. It's a great industry to be in. You can have a great career, you can get paid extremely well, you can be a great entrepreneur, but it's also civic resilience. It's dual use, and that's really going to be important. So that's what success looks like. And the success is, by the way, that I get fired from the hacking games and replaces me as one of the founding members of my youth hacking community. So either Marco Liberale or Bia Skylab or Dylan or Benjamin or Cole, any of these guys have replaced me as the CEO, and it becomes a Gen Z driven organization.
You're still doing amazing things, so don't get yourself fired just yet. What
Thank you.
advice would you give to a parent whose child shows interest in hacking or who's very deep into tech, but they're unsure how to guide that safely?
You got to jump in. I think the main thing is um, to look if your kid is into gaming
Okay.
and to reframe how you see that, and not see it as a waste of time, but see it as a live laboratory of skill sets and jump in. There was an amazing professor I had dinner with the other night. She was so cool. And she was an academic, paper and pen, super bright, really brilliant mind. And she has one child and she was super close to him. And then at about 11 years old, she kind of lost him to Counter-Strike, the game. And
Wow.
he was playing online with his mates, and he's an 11-year-old, and their bond became,
Driven, yes.
yeah. And in the end, she was complaining to him about it. Like, we were so close, and blah, blah. And he was like, well, Mum, just come and play Counter-Strike with me. And now let me tell you how un-Counter-Strike this lady is. Like, she is not a gamer. She is academic, unbelievably bright, pen and paper, very different generation. And to her amazing credit, she dived in. 10
Good.
years later, 10 years later, he is now living in San Francisco, working in tech. They still play Counter-Strike together. They are in each other's culture. I love that story because, people come up to me like, I've got to stop my kids playing Roblox and Minecraft. I'm like, no, get in there with them.
Yes.
I play with my kids all the time. My kids hacked me on Sunday playing Roblox. My kids are 11, 10, and 8. Basically, I loved it. It was brilliant. Basically, there's this game in Roblox, which everyone's playing right now, where you have this admin abuse hour where the guy who creates the game drops all these precious stuff all over the game. And everyone runs around, they get it, hoard it, hoard it, hoard it, and then they go and put it in their base. But the game is you run to everyone else's base and you steal their stuff. And I cannot tell you the rage people get when all their treasures are stolen by their friends. What my kids did is because we're connected, but I'm not connected to their friends for obvious reasons. What they did is they got into my account and then they went and put all of their treasure in my base. And because their friends aren't connected to me, their friends can't get to my base. So next time I jumped into the game, I had like $11 trillion of treasure in my base. And I was like, guys, why have I got 11 trillion? They were like, oh, well, basically, we collected all our treasure stuff. Then we got into your account and then we moved all our treasure stuff to your base. And now none of our friends can get to your base because you're not friends with them and they can't steal it. And I just sat there. I thought, that is awesome.
That
That
is
is
awesome.
awesome. Just
It,
it's smart, right? But that was a moment. So what I would say to parents, if your kids are gaming, get in there with them, help them understand stranger danger in the same way you would help them understand that on the streets. If you let them out on the streets, know what the red flags are, talk, be in there, put your parental controls on so that so that people can't connect with your kids unless they're validated friends, and just be part of the culture and understand what's going on and be part of it. If your kids are really into hacking and coding, Find them a community, send them our way. Send them to the hacking games. We have rolling beta test users of our HapTi product. We have great community access. But I'll tell you, the hacking communities are beautiful. They do great meetups. Take them to B-sides, take them to DEF CON, embrace it, lean into it. And what you'll do is you'll find that these kids will find their tribe. And when they find their tribe, they grow and they don't feel lonely and isolated and judged and marginalized. They feel included and togetherness. And then they'll develop their own personality and leadership skills out of it. So embrace it. Don't stop it.
This is so beautiful. I have a question for you now.
Yeah.
What gives you hope about the next generation of ethical hackers and their potential to do good?
I have a lot of faith in humanity. I think fundamentally people are good, and we spoke off camera, but
Yes.
quite a lot of experiences where I've seen people are really bad in really bad environments. But fundamentally, I think environments drive the behaviors, not the raw personalities. And I think that I think this generation have got the potential to have the biggest positive impact of any generation in history. And the reason why I think that, and I'm particularly talking about the neurodivergence, is that in the past they've been marginalized. They've been seen as difficult, hard to manage. Someone called them disabled to me the other day. I said, well, at the end of this, only one of us is going to be disabled, and it's not going to be me. I mean, it was so rude how they talked about them.
Wow.
But actually, this generation of neurodivergent minds are the first generation who are going to have access to technology that can scale what they think. Never before have a neurodivergent been able to access LLMs, ChatGPT, technologies that can take their ideas that they are brilliant at executing and be able to execute. Churchill called them the corkscrew minds. These are the ones that he recruited into Bletchley Park under Alan Turing, autistic, neurodivergent scientists and mathematicians. Actually, a high quotient of Polish women who didn't have any academic skills, but were brilliant puzzle solvers. And what Churchill understood is if you put these people together, they will crack the Enigma code, the fundamental part of our involvement in the war. And I think what you've got now is that on enormous technical horsepower. So the reason why I'm really positive is human nature in the right context does wonderful things. And secondarily, we've now got the tools to equip these brilliant minds, these corkscrew minds, these powerful minds to do incredible things, which they've never had before. And the market is demanding it. That's what I'm hearing from my customer partners and the governments and the private sectors. They want these people. And I think that's going to create amazing innovation and creativity. Amazing innovation and creativity. And I'm so excited to see that. But we've got to do our job. We've got to identify them. We've got to inspire them. We've got to equip them with the tools, and we've got to give them opportunities. And that's our job.
That's amazing. I know we are a bit tight on time, but I had a question I forgot to ask you a bit earlier. So
yeah,
I will address it now. And then I have one final question. A bit earlier, before the call, we talked about people with disability or children with disability and what's their risk online. Have you seen, or to your knowledge, do you know any measures that they are put in place to take care of them as well, because they are part of our community? And there are people with learning disabilities or people that they are, I don't know, probably blind, or they have different disabilities that we need to take them into account.
Well, I definitely haven't seen anything constructive online for them. So no is the answer. But my only area of knowledge is around neurodiversity. So that's the bit I'm going to lean into. If you find it really hard to find your tribe in the real world, the internet is a wonderful place because you can find your tribe and you don't have to have all the social interactions that are demanded of you in the real world, which is why hackers communities are so warm and interconnected. And the misunderstanding is that if someone's on their computer, they're socially detached and lonely. Completely not true. What I've observed with Gen Z hackers and Gen Z gamers is the minute they get to 17 or 18, they've saved up their pocket money to fly to meet their friend from Taiwan, who they've been gaming with since they were 11. Right? It's amazing. They're so socially connected, just on some different metrics. So I think there's again understanding to be done of what human behavior is living through gaming, and understand that gaming isn't pushing buttons to lights on a screen. Gaming is social interaction, communities, subject matters. Soon it'll be payments, and it'll be swag, and it'll be careers. I mean, it's a whole ecosystem. It's what the internet was to our generation, really. And so I think we need to understand that the environment is different. What we're trying to do to help, and I'm not going to use the disabled world because I don't believe it. I'm going to use the neurobrilliant word, is to give them visibility and then create communities and mentorship, and work with the companies to create working environments to get the very best out of this talent. And I don't think it is an inclusion method. I think these companies are unbelievably lucky to have this talent. This talent is incredible. It's be the top 0.1% in the entire company. And so we need to shift that positioning. I'm not 100% sure on how to do that yet, but I think there is a pathway for them. I think the internet is a pretty dangerous place when vulnerable people are there, because there are people who are manipulative. And so we need to educate people. We need to help people understand the red flags. The guardians and parents need to understand. And you can't understand from a distance. You have to understand by being in there with them. So I don't know if I've got anything cleverer than to say, then let's understand the world that they live in. Get in it yourself and live in it. And let's create pathways for these neurobrilliant people to make a positive impact on society. One neurobrilliant person will have a much bigger impact than 10 of me. So let's find 10 neurobrilliant people and give them opportunities.
And that's a very clever thing to say. Thank you. And this is the last and final question. How can listeners support or get involved with the Hacking Games mission?
I love it, Paula. 4 ways. So if you are a company that is on the hunt for the next wave of incredible talent, join our design program. We've got amazing businesses on it, like Vericode and Sophos and AWS and the Co-op, a whole load of other businesses who are all part of our design program to find the next wave of brilliant talent. Get in touch with us. I'm sure you'll put our emails and all the stuff in the bottom of the podcast. If you are a company that wants to build your profile with Gen Z consumers and with stakeholders to show that you're taking security seriously, get involved in our media. We have documentaries, short form content, podcast series. We do speaking engagements. We have conferences. So if you want to be part of the wave of creating a generation of ethical hackers, showcase to your stakeholders that you are a secure and resilient organization, come and join us as a brand partner. If you are a hacker, if you're a young hacker, young can be 12 to 27, can be 30, it can be 40, and you want to be part of our communities. We have 2 communities, Virtue, which is more of the more mature audience. And then we have Cyber, which is our youth community. Come and join us, be an active member. Paula's a member. An amazing group of people, incredible stories. It's now got its own energy of people doing their own meetups. And then fourthly, if you're a government, and if you're a government and you're listening, and you want to be the government, not only stops your citizens from falling into cybercrime, but then also identifies and develops their talent to drive civic and national resilience. Get in touch. You'll be in good company with some of the leading countries in the world, and together we can create a generation of ethical hackers to make the world safer.
Fergus, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this inspiring and actionable work. The Hacking Games is proof that when we channel young curiosity into purpose, we can truly reshape online safety for better. Thank you so much.
Paula, it was a delight. Let's do it again. Thank you so much.
To all our listeners, we hope that this episode gives you insights and tools to help you guide young people toward ethical digital path. Don't forget to subscribe and join us for more conversations that keep our online spaces secure. Stay safe, stay informed. Bye-bye.